It is my absolute honor and privilege at this time to bring out the one and only George Takei!
Oh my. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I really mean thank you. I do conventions because this gives me an opportunity to express my gratitude to all of you who, for over all these many years, 53 years, that's how old Star Trek is, believe it or not. And we've lasted this long, not because of Gene Roddenberry, he created the show, but it's the support and the devotion of the fans that's given us this longevity. And looking over, I can see people I can identify as the original fans. There you are. I can tell, and thank you, original fans. You've changed quite a bit in 53 years, and that's good because we've all changed over the years, haven't we? But the amazing thing about the original fans is they have the ability to replicate themselves, procreate like tribbles, and there you all are. The next generation and the generation after that, and now little infants are coming and they know how to go like this on cue. Genetic change is happening over the generations. Well, it's this kind of devotion that's given us the gift. You've given us the gift of amplifying our voices. And I feel that like I have a responsibility to use that gift as responsibly as I can. And so I try to use it for positive purposes. And so thank you very much for this wonderful gift. And I appreciate it, and I will use it as responsibly as I can. Thank you. But this is an audience participation program, and I see that you're all lining up, so let's dive right into it. You've got the floor.
Hi, Uncle George. My daughter calls you Uncle George because she grew up with you.
I have a lot of nieces and nephews and grandnieces and grandnephews, and I think you're awesome too. I love you all.
My name is Melissa. I'm going to start on a little bit of a serious note. I want to thank you for all your work in drawing attention to the internment camps. And I know you have a new book out, and I wasn't paid to say that. I'm hoping it's a really big seller for you and that a lot more people learn about camps. I grew up in the California education system and never heard a word about them. So thank you very much, and we're delighted to see you. Thanks for coming.
Well,
Live
thank
long
you.
and prosper.
Live long and prosper. Thank you for being a teacher. Teachers are important pillars of our society. And I am grateful to the teachers because through them, we educate the next generation of Americans. And that's what you've been doing as a teacher. So thank you very much. When I was a teenager, I wanted to know more about my childhood imprisonment. But I read all the history books that I could get my hands on and couldn't learn a thing. There wasn't anything about that in the history books. And it's only in recent times that because we are writing books and producing Broadway musicals on it and graphic memoirs, which just came out last week. It's called They Called Us Enemy, and that's what they called us. I was a 5-year-old kid, and the government of the United States deemed me as a threat to national security. They even raided orphanages. I mean, what threat to the national security of this country are parentless children. Some were infants, and some were biracial, and yet they were classified as enemy aliens as well. And so I think we need to know about this kind of history and what we as an American are capable of. And I wrote my autobiography in 1994 and my graphic memoir that just came out last week with the a purpose of informing all of us that we have a fragile democracy. We have to be actively involved, engaged in our democracy. It's a participatory democracy. And thank you all for all your involvement to prevent this sort of thing from happening ever again. My book is a book of hope for a better America, built by better Americans, well informed. So thank you very much.
Hello, George. My name is William. I just want to say it's an honor to meet you. Since this December is going to be the 40th anniversary of Star Trek: The Motion Picture, could you take us back and give us a memory of that production?
Well, yes, it's the 40th anniversary, isn't it? Star Trek is 53 years old, but for Star Trek: The Motion Picture, it's 40 years old. And that, too, is another gift that the fans gave us. Because, you know, we were... At the beginning of each episode of our television series, we suggested that we were on a 5-year mission, boldly going where no one had gone before. 5-year mission. But it seems even more destructive than the Klingons were the NBC programming executives. Only 3 years, and our 5-year mission was aborted. And we thought, all right, it's over. We're proud of what we've done. We did good work. But that's showbiz, as they say. But when we went into syndication, they put us on every night, the whole week, Monday through Friday. And that's when we found all of you, the audience, and it soared in the box office. I mean, in the ratings. And it became so popular that Paramount decided, rather than reviving us as a TV series, they're going to revive us as a feature motion picture. We were just blown away by that idea. And then they hired Robert Wise, a legendary Hollywood director. And we thought, this is going to be something fantastic. And they gave us the kind of budget that allowed for all sorts of special effects. And so we were very excited about the movie. And when we started with all of the high expectations. And we had a special effects guy named Robert Able, A-B-L-E. And we thought he was very able. But we started having problems. The special effects got slowed down, and we were going over schedule, which meant that we were going over budget as well. And tense executives started coming onto the set. Black suits with sober expressions on their faces. And we knew we were in trouble. And the schedule went over and over schedule. And they decided they're going to change the special effects guy. And because it was getting too expensive and too over schedule, they got rid of him and they brought on another guy. And then it speeded up again. But we went very over budget and schedule. And so when the film came out, the studio had very low expectations about the box office. But again, all of you stepped in. The fans saved Star Trek, the motion picture. You went and saw it, and you saw it again, and again, and again. It's the same movie. But you came to see it over and over again, and it exploded at the box office. And that's what made it a box office success. Your devotion and your absolute refusal to stop seeing it. Thank you very much, and it's because of that that we became a series of feature motion pictures. And that's why we're here 53 years old after Star Trek began and 40 years after Star Trek, the motion picture, was done.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Zach, and me and my dad have been fans of you and the show for years on end, ever since I was young, and unfortunately he wasn't able to make it today. So I had him send me a question, and his question was, what was the most challenging Star Trek episode to film and why?
Well, Zach, you are the next generation. And thank your dad for having you. I know you're grateful. What was the question again?
What was the most challenging Star Trek episode to film and why?
The TV series or the feature film?
TV series.
TV series. The most challenging. We had some nip and tuck scheduling problems. You know, we only had 6 days in which to film a whole episode. So it was usually one week and another day of another week. And some episodes went into the wee hours of overtime. And I remember one director, and I can't remember the episode, but we were shooting at like past midnight. And he was a very nervous director. I can't remember his name now. He was very anxiety-riddled. And during one of the shots, when they were setting it up, I left the sound stage to go to the trailer, and I saw him outside the sound stage peeing in between the trailers. I mean, he was so nervous that he held it, and apparently he couldn't make it to the men's room. So he was peeing between, and I can't tell you what episode that was or who that director was. But it was a horrible, excruciating episode to work on.
Thank you, sir.
Long hours.
Hello, Captain Sulu.
Hi, yes, I got that promotion. It took 3 series and 5 feature films before I finally got my captaincy.
Now I have a question for George.
Yes.
You, a lot of sci-fi actors have been typecast in their roles over the years. How did you break out of that to become making guest appearances on so many shows and things as George Takei and not Mr. Sulu?
Well, it takes a long time. And yes, you know, it was difficult going out for auditions after Star Trek was canceled. And people do, producers do want different faces. We were so identified with the characters that we did on the TV series that they were reluctant to cast us. But I don't believe in complaining about it, you know, after the fact. So what I decided to do after that was, all right, I'm going to accept other invitations to use my time. I, as you know, am a political activist, and I was involved in the campaign to get our city councilman in Los Angeles, elected mayor of Los Angeles. He was an African-American city councilman, a very decent guy, and a very good problem solver. And he asked me to serve as the chair of his Asian American committee, and I accepted that. And we worked hard, and he got elected the mayor of Los Angeles, the first African American to become the mayor of Los Angeles. And he turned out to be the best mayor that we've ever had. He was re-elected 4 times, served 5 terms, 20 years straight on as the mayor of Los Angeles, and became the most popular and longest-serving mayor. And he asked me to serve on the board of directors of the Southern California Rapid Transit District, which was a time-engaging appointment. And I decided, well, all right, I'm going to use my time to improve the public transportation situation in Los Angeles. His mandate to us was to get started on building the first subway in Los Angeles. Los Angeles was known, and I think still is known, as an automobile-dependent city. And I think Raleigh, too, is getting near that point. I know the traffic coming here to the convention center was very familiar to us Angelinos.
It's a rare weekend, though. It usually is not this bad.
It's not. It's only when you have these conventions.
Correct.
Here. Yes. Well, that's good. That's good. We have that in Los Angeles all the time. They call it the freeway, and you get on it for free so far, but then you park. We call it a parking freeway. And every 3 minutes, you move about 3 feet.
I've been.
You've been there, you know.
No fun.
So Mayor Bradley's idea was to have the first subway in Los Angeles going. And it was an exciting thing. We got a half-cent sales tax pass for the local match. We went to Washington for the federal match, to Sacramento for the state match. And once we got the funds together, we had to hold public hearings for route alignment, station locations, and they became very controversial, but we got that done. But once we started construction, I thought it would be prudent for me not to be involved, because you're putting up detour signs, deflecting, and I didn't want to have people demonstrating in front of my home saying, you know, I'm ruining somebody's business. So after 11 years, I went to Mayor Bradley and I said, I've done my job. I think I'll go back to my career. And he understood, and just then, 10 years after we were canceled, we came back as a feature motion picture, and I got my career back. So I took a little leave of absence from acting, and that's how you survive that label of being a sci-fi actor. I don't know what a sci-fi actor looks like, but I guess it looks like us.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Allegiance. Any chance that will be made into a feature motion picture? And if so, would you be in it?
Well, thank you for asking. Allegiance, for your information, is a musical that we developed about the internment of Japanese Americans. I'd written an autobiography, and the first third is about our internment, but it's still letters on a page of a book. And we wanted to humanize that story, and not only humanize it, but dig deep into the human heart. And nothing is more powerful at expressing emotion than a song, and therefore a musical. And we developed this musical, Allegiance, which deals with one of the most divisive, most destructive thing that happened in the middle of our imprisonment. A year into imprisonment, they decided to come down with a loyalty questionnaire. Demand loyalty after they took everything from us, impoverished us, and imprisoned us for a year. And we developed a musical on that portion of the internment story. And we played it on Broadway. And then before we closed, we filmed it as a stage play, but with using film technique. And so we released that with this company that does one-night only screenings of rock concerts, operas, and our Broadway musical. And we today hold the record for having the biggest box office of any of these one-night only screenings. So we're very, and thanks to all of you again, your support that helped make it a box office success. And your question was, if it gets made into a movie, would I still be in it? Well, I play both the grandfather of the family as well as the young man who has a moving love affair with the white nurse in the film. And he's embittered because something terrible happens to that relationship. And he's an aged and bitter and angry him. The wonderful thing about my part, the grandfather is an old guy. And when I play the young man, he's an old man. And so I can age right into whatever movie it gets made. So if it gets made 5 years from now, 6 years from now, 7 years from now, I qualify. So yes, I will be back if it gets made into a movie.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
My question is, working on a graphic novel, how did that challenge you in ways creatively that you hadn't been challenged before?
Yes, a graphic, a memoir, it has certain disciplines. But I wanted to tell that story. I told it in my autobiography, but I wanted to tell that story as a comic strip, because when I meet adults still to this day, people that I consider well-informed, and I tell them about my childhood imprisonment in the United States, they're absolutely shocked that something like that happened in the US. And I'm shocked that they're shocked, because I thought they knew about my childhood imprisonment. So I decided to tell it as a comic strip, a graphic memoir, because when I was a kid, I read comic strips. And at that age, you absorb in the information. You're just hungry for information. And when you read something that impresses you, that stays with you as an adult. And I wanted to see the future of America as young people who grow up knowing this chapter of American history. And if we have enough young people that know about it, then they won't allow things like what's happening right now to this day on our southern borders. That is not America. So I call my graphic memoir a book of hope. But I had help on that, because I can write. But storytelling as a graphic novel, as a comic strip, requires certain disciplines, knowing how to break up the story, in these panels, and how to emphasize certain panels over others. And they had a black panel. And I said, why are we wasting this space with a black panel? And they said it's a transitional situation. So it's like a blackout on film before the next story begins. And so I had two very gifted people who produce graphic novels, Justin Eisinger and Stephen Scott, and a brilliantly gifted artist who does manga. She's an American, she's biracial, she's half Japanese, and she knew how to capture emotions on this cute, irresistibly adorable 5-year-old boy, me, with just one line or a squiggle and the expression changes. It takes her artistry to tell that story as a graphic comic strip. And so I had wonderful help, but the story is my story. Thank you for asking about it.
Thank you. It's a wonderful book.
Oh yes, her name, the artist's name is Harmony Becker. And I love that name, Harmony. She harmonizes story and storytelling and is able to create that magic of telling it as a manga picture, panel after panel. You're on.
All right, Mr. Takei, thank you so much for coming to North Carolina. Thank you for your voice of like resistance in this current time right now that we have. That you stand up for LGBT rights so thank you for that. Now my question. Thank you. So my question is, in 2006, Christie's auction house had a huge auction of Star Trek memorabilia. It got $7.1 million from these outfits that you probably wore. I'm wondering that probably in the original series, you probably didn't even think about it. It was done after 3 years. I'm curious if there was anything that you took or that you have as a memento of the series or a movie that you would like to share with us.
Well, Gene Roddenberry, the creator of the show, gave me two wonderful gifts from the show. One was the uniform that I wore as Captain Sulu in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. And there it was sitting in my, hanging in my closet. And, you know, I'd see it occasionally. Brad would see it occasionally. But it's there in the darkened closet. And I thought, you know, I should share this. I should share this with the public. And we founded a museum called the Japanese American National Museum in Los Angeles. It's an affiliate of the Smithsonian. And I thought, well, we founded a museum, and I have something that might be of interest to the museum. So I asked the curator, would you like it? And she said, oh my goodness, yes. And so I donated it to the museum, and they put it on display in the gallery of the post-interment story to show that someone who was incarcerated in the American barbed wire prison camp could eventually become the captain of the starship Excelsior.
Absolutely.
And I drop in on the museum periodically. I'm a trustee on the board. And the docents all ask me, you know, we're getting these visitors who greet them like this. And they're all young people. And I think they're your fans. How come we're getting an influx of these people? And I said, oh, it's because of the costume on display upstairs in the upstairs gallery. And so I gave it to the museum, and I've been able to share it with everybody. But I had another costume that Gene gave me, and that's the costume I wore in Star Trek 3 and 4. That leather cape outfit with the gray kind of kimono, you know, Asian-looking front. I still have that. And I'm a member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences that gives out the Oscars every year. And we have a program now to build the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures. And we took a old department store in Los Angeles that was abandoned and closed, and we have beautifully, adaptively reused that and added another addition to it, a theater inside a huge sphere behind that department store building. And they wanted a costume from Star Trek, the motion picture version. And so I donated that leather cape uniform there. And so when the museum opens, that'll be, and that's going to be opening late this year, 2019. You can see that there. Cool. So all you fans, come to Los Angeles to either the Japanese American National Museum or the new Academy Museum of Motion Pictures to see my costumes. Thank you for asking that question.
Hello, Mr. Takei.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate your time.
I appreciate being here. Thank you for spending your time here with me.
Of course. My question for you is your story, you were a man of overcoming so many obstacles and challenges and fights and difficult times in your life to be on the stage and be a success story. And you've gone through so many changes in what might define eras of your life. What would you tell someone who is in the midst of such a fight today?
We have a lot of challenges in life. I think it's important that those who have been given a gift return that gift by making the world we live in a little bit better. And because I have lived through a critical part of American history as a child, 5-year-old child, I feel that responsibility to make that contribution. And the gift that you've given me of amplifying my voice so that I have access to the TV news cameras or the radio show microphone or the printed press. I take that responsibility very seriously and try to use it to contribute to building a better America, a truer American democracy by sharing that story and dramatizing it. And so I thank you all for the gift that you've given me, and I take that responsibility of that gift and try to make our future a better America and a truer democracy.
Thank you, Mr. Takei.
Hi, I'm Molly.
Hi, Molly.
Thank you. I was wondering, what was it like for you as a working person to watch kind of a job that you had moved on from kind of come back? Like, was it weird to start getting Star Trek phone calls again?
Star Trek phone calls?
Yeah. Like, after the show got canceled, you know, there was a long period of time. Did it feel strange to you that this show came back into your life and became a huge part of it, or what was that like?
Oh, no, we were delighted that Star Trek came back as a series of motion pictures. And then all these other different ways of telling the story. Leonard and Dee came back as a part of the next generation. And I was able to come back with the Voyager cast on TV and a series of motion pictures. And so, I mean, we love the show and what it stands for. I think Gene Roddenberry created an amazing show, and one of the things that attracted me and the cast, as well as the audience, I think, is that view that Gene Roddenberry had of what the future of this world might be. It was set in the 23rd century, and spectacular achievements have been made. We have a huge vessel a starship with over 1,000 crew members. Gene Roddenberry said that the Starship Enterprise was a metaphor for Starship Earth. And he said the strength of this starship lay in the diversity of that starship, Starship Earth, coming together and working in concert as a team. The diversity was its strength, and the unity was its power. And so you saw the makeup of the bridge of the Enterprise, a North American captain of the starship, played by a Canadian, Bill Shatner from Montreal, Canada. Europe was represented by a Scottish engineer, played by another Canadian, Jimmy Doohan. He was from Vancouver, British Columbia. Nice guy, great guy. I enjoyed spending time with him. He became my favorite drinking buddy. And he made a confessional to me during one of our sipping sessions. He said, "I'm getting famous as a Scotsman, but I'm really an Irishman." An Irishman born in Vancouver, British Columbia. But, he said, "I've drunk enough of the libation of Scotland to qualify playing a Scotsman."
Thank you.
He qualified. I'm a witness to it.
Hi, Uncle George.
Hi.
Thank you so much for everything you do for your activism. It's wonderful. Now, my question is, what is your proudest accomplishment? What do you want your legacy to be?
That's a profound question. You know, I'm going to be around for a long, long time.
Yes, yes.
My grandmother celebrated 104 birthdays.
And you're going to beat her, George.
Oh, I'm very competitive. I'm going to beat my grandmother.
Yes.
We have lived long and
Yes,
prospered.
Yes.
And so I really haven't thought in terms of a legacy, but you know, a legacy is what you do while you're alive. And I hope what I do while I'm alive will be appreciated by people after I die.
Well, what's your
That's
proudest,
a legacy.
What's your proudest accomplishment so far?
What's my what?
Proudest accomplishment so far?
Well, my personal passion is acting. I love acting. But my mission is to ensure that because of what I experienced as a child, as I have been saying, to make our country one that we can proud of, where we can stand behind what is done in our name as Americans. What's happening right now is not what we want to stand behind and say, this is American. So I hope my legacy will be
Thank you.
to be a proud American.
All right, I'm giving you your 5-minute warning, so there's time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions.
5-minute warning. We'll talk fast.
Hi, George. My name's Caddy.
Hi, Kathy.
I know that you have had a huge impact on many of your fans, but I was wondering if there was an interaction or a type of interaction with fans that has been impactful to you.
There have been so many fans who have been very dedicated to. You know, there was one guy who had his name legally changed to no, not Sulu. He had his name changed to I'm blanking. But people who have had their names changed to various characters' names. Your question was?
Has a fan ever impacted you with actions, words, and interaction?
You know, the distinguished senator from Vermont, Senator Patrick Leahy. Oh, Patrick Leahy has some fans here. He's a great senator, one that I'm an admirer of. In fact, I first met him at the Air and Space Museum when Gene Roddenberry donated the first scale model of the Enterprise that was built for the TV series. He donated that to the Smithsonian. And there it was installed at the Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C., and the cast was flown out for the unveiling of the Enterprise. And a few senators were there to join in on the festivities, and one of them was Patrick Leahy. We were, what was it, 2 weeks ago? Was it 2 weeks? No, last weekend when Comic-Con in San Diego was going on. Comic-Con had finished, and we were being driven back, Brad and I were being driven back to Los Angeles, and the phone rang. We picked it up, and it was Senator Patrick Leahy phoning us in the limo, driving us back to Los Angeles. He said he just read an article on me in the Washington Post and about my graphic memoir, and he was calling to congratulate me. And I was just blown away to get a call from a U.S. senator, and a distinguished senior senator at that, while I'm being driven in the car back to Los Angeles. And I thank him profusely, but that was an amazing experience, and he's one of my heroes. So I suppose that qualifies as an answer to your question.
Thank you.
And now I think you are the last one.
Well, it's a pleasure to be your last question. Thank you for your gift and all your stories to share with us. And I will say I was tickled to see you on Murder, She Wrote. So.
On what?
Murder, She Wrote.
Oh, yes. Angela Lansbury. She's another one of my heroes. Yes. I mean, she is amazing. She was in her late 80s, and here she was almost every year. I'm a theater buff, and we go to Broadway plays in New York, and she's got a new play almost every year going, and in one of them, Blithe Spirit, a revival of Noel Coward's play, she won a Tony for that, and now she's in her 90s, and if you saw Mary Poppins Returns, there she is at 92 years old in Mary Poppins Return singing a song. I mean, she's an amazing woman. And
I agree, and you're amazing as well. So.
Well, I'm not 92 years old yet. I'll get there, and she'll be 102 by that time.
Was there any specific role, whether it be filmography or on the stage, that helped you grow the most as a person, or that you discovered something about yourself that you didn't know?
I did a stage play called The Year of the Dragon back in 1974, written by a Chinese-American playwright, Frank Chin. And I think in that one, for the first time, I was able to use my own Asian American life experience in a character. With all the other characters I've created from my imagination. But in Year of the Dragon, I was able to use my own life experience as an Asian American in that role. It was later filmed for television on the Theater in America series. And so I was able to reach a larger audience via television. And television has been a great blessing for me because on August 12th, I'll be coming at you with another series called The Terror Infamy. It's about the internment of Japanese Americans, told as a both chapter of American history, but fused with some horror. It was a harrowing experience as it was, but that horror has been intensified by dramatization. And so go out to your bookstores or to Amazon and get a copy of They Called Us Enemy, or on August 12th, tune in on AMC and catch the first episode. It's a 10-part miniseries. So this is the first time that the story has been told on this epic level. 10 episodes over a 10-week period. And so that is going to be another way of telling the story of my childhood imprisonment. The terror, infamy, and also as an adorable 5-year-old kid, and They Called Us Enemy. And I guess my time is up now, so thank you all very much. Live long and prosper. Thank you.